In Colombia, a training aircraft crashes in a residential area.
Authorities say an investigation is underway to trace the cause of the incident. More details on this later in the news. Good evening, I am Gianna Llanes.
I am Nina Richie Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Now for the headlines. Marcos administration seeks to plant 100 million coconut trees by 2028. Philippines and the Netherlands expand their naval industry cooperation. Pyongyang halts its nuclear plant with odds to extract plutonium for warfare. 47 heads of state to meet in Spain's Granada for the European Political Summit. And Filipino Jiu-Jitsu fighter Margarita Ochoa wins the Philippines' second gold medal in ASEAN. Environment and Natural Accounts Division has reported that there is an uptick in the country's overall water use efficiency, or WUE, in 2022. WUE is the value added per volume of water consumed in cubic meters. The division noted last year's consumption went up to 222 pesos and 4 centavos per cubic meter of water. This resulted in a 5.5% increase in the 2021 data of 200 pesos and 9 centavos per cubic meter. Meanwhile, the highest WUE recorded in 2022 went to the services sector with 1,300 pesos and 73 centavos per cubic meter. Between 2021 and 2022, the country has withdrawn 91 billion cubic meters of freshwater withdrawal, or 27.8% equivalents in water stress level. Experts say water stress level describes a proportion withdrawn by a country to its available water supply.
Rice inflation in September has surged to its highest rate in 14 years, despite efforts to implement price control measures. The inflation rate for this essential staple reached an alarming 17.9% last month, a significant increase from the 8.7% reported in August. National statistician Claire Dennis Mapa has emphasized that rice is also the primary contributor to the faster food inflation, which rose to 10% in September, up from 8.2% in the preceding month.
The Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, or BSP, is preparing to resume tightening monetary policy in response to the accelerated inflation rate in the Philippines for September. Inflation surged to 6.1% last month, a notable rise from the 5.3% recorded in August. This increase is primarily attributed to surging food prices and rising transportation costs. It also marks the 18th consecutive month that inflation has exceeded the central bank's target range of 2 to 4%. Year to date, the inflation rate is currently averaging at 6.6% based on the given data.
The Department of Labor and Employment has released data indicating about 15,000 job vacancies for 5 top positions nationwide. Call center agents are in high demand, comprising the largest share of vacancies with 4,508 positions available from the 25th to the 29th of September. Following closely are production machine operators with 4,170 vacancies and executive assistants with 3,202 openings. There is also notable demand for production workers, totaling 1,867 job vacancies, and domestic helpers with 1,397 available positions.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. has issued a directive to the Philippine Coconut Authority, or PCA, to formulate a comprehensive plan for the coconut industry with an ambitious target of planting 100 million trees by 2028. In a meeting at Malacanang with PCA officials, President Marcos discusses strategies encompassing post-harvest, processing, and marketing interventions for this massive 5-year project. Named the Massive Coconut Planting and Replanting Project 2023 to 2028, this initiative aims to cater to the robust demand for coconut products both domestically and on the international stage. The PCA has reported that the government has already covered 3.6 million hectares of land with coconut trees in 2022. The focus in the coming decade or more will be to fortify and expand this initiative, ensuring the sustained growth and development of the coconut industry.
Typhoon Koinu has exited the Philippine area of responsibility. Pagasa spots the eye of Koinu at 275 kilometers west-northwest of Itbayat, Batanes as of 5 p.m. today. Koinu is moving westward at 15 kilometers per hour with maximum sustained winds of 140 kilometers per hour near the center with gustiness of up to 170 kilometers per hour. The State Weather Bureau, however, has still raised storm wind signals in the following areas in the country. Pagasa has raised signal number 2 in Itbayat, Batanes. Storm wind signal number 1 was raised on the rest of Batanes, Babuyan Islands, the north portion of Apayao, the northwest portion of Cagayan, and the north portion of Ilocos Norte. The weather agency forecasts Koinu to slowly weaken once entering the Taiwan Strait. Meanwhile, airport authorities said AirAsia Philippines and Cebu Pacific Air have canceled some of their flights due to inclement weather.
Philippine Coast Guard Chief Artemio Abu has clarified that the recent maritime incident in Bajo de Masinloc has no connection to the escalating tensions in the West Philippine Sea. This is after an oil tanker hoisting a flag of Marshall Islands rammed a Filipino fishing vessel, resulting in the death of 3 fishermen Monday. PCG has identified the vessel as crude oil tanker Pacific Anna. Abu said he wrote to the government of Marshall Islands to get information on the vessel. Meanwhile, a marine casualty investigation is underway to determine the liability of the owner and crew of Pacific Anna.
The Netherlands is seeking to expand its defense ties with the Philippines in the field of naval defense cooperation. Vin Pasqua for the report.
Dutch Ambassador to Manila Marielle Jaritz had conveyed the Netherlands' interest to establish a naval defense industry in cooperation with the Philippines. The envoy underscored the strategic and economic advantages the cooperation would bring in the long term, citing the Philippines' recent adoption of the National Security Policy 2023 to 2028. The Netherlands is known for its naval industries, especially for constructing high-quality patrol ships, corvettes, frigates, and submarines. Meanwhile, Defense Chief Gilberto Teodoro agreed with the diplomat's proposal to further bolster the defense ties between Manila and Amsterdam. This includes other areas such as cyber and artificial intelligence. The Philippines and the Netherlands are set to mark the 72nd anniversary of the establishment of their diplomatic relations this year. Vin Pasqua reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Coming up, South Korea and the United States monitor a possible halt in Pyongyang's nuclear reactor. New York State Attorney General refuses to yield to Donald Trump's bullying. And 47 heads of state to meet in Spain for the European Political Summit. Stay tuned for more stories around the globe when we return.
Ngayong Sabado, sa Oh No, It's BO. Babaeng puro reklamo. Marami ang naaaburido.
Magkano po yung kwek-kwek? Ba't ganito yung lasa? Bakit? Iba po yung panlasa ko eh. Hindi lang po nakatikim ng ganyan. Ikaw lang din nagsabing din.
May maka-bullseye kaya sa darts kung ang target ay tao imbis na dartboard?
Ito, 1, 2, 3, ano lang. Okay, 1, 2, 3,
Mapapakembot naman ang marami sa Shake Your Booty Prank Challenge ni Papa P.
Kaya mo yan! Kaya mo yan! Go! Go! Kaya mo yan!
Prank Tito na mala LC ang nakasimentong braso. Marami ang mapeperwisyo.
Dediretso po ako doon. Kakaliwa po ako pag ganun.
Jason Brothers, hindi nakaligtas sa hand in the back prank. Lahat ng yan, ating abangan this Saturday, 8 p.m. sa Oh No, It's BO. Biro only sa Net 25.
Hello po, ako po si Donna Cariaga.
Check to the left! Check to the right! Check to the right! Check to the left! Check to the right!
Abangan niyo po ako ngayong Sabado dito lang sa Oh No, It's BO. Biro only.
Welcome back to Mata ng Agila International. China has long used gray zone warfare tactics aimed to weaken Taiwan. Beijing is firm in its reunification with the self-ruling country, as in the past years it had repeatedly rehearsed encircling the island. According to Taiwan's defense ministry, it has recorded about 103 Chinese fighter jets have flown near its island, 40 of which entered its air defense identification zone this September. This marked yet another escalation in the Chinese war games. Analysts say China's ambiguous tactics are part of Beijing's strategy to control Taipei without wasting any bullets. This began when former United States Speaker Nancy Pelosi visited Taiwan in August of 2022. Beijing has perceived this as a provocation and responded to a week-long drill dubbed Joint Sword Drills.
The United Nations Trade and Development Chief says concerns about China's economic troubles are being exaggerated. Beijing, she assures, still has plenty of fiscal headroom. Arlene Ocampo reports.
China's ballooning property sector crisis has seen several high-profile firms drowning in debt. It fuels fears about the country's wider economy and a possible spillover globally. However, UN Conference on Trade and Development Chief Rebecca Greenspan disagrees.
We did lower our estimates for growth from 5% to 4.8%, given especially the weaker internal demand, the domestic demand that we have seen. But it's a slowdown, but it's not something like the very pessimistic reviews that we have seen also in some of the publications. So we think that there is a slowdown of the growth in China, but not a dramatic crisis.
Sure, thank you.
The massive debt accrued by China's property sector's biggest players has been seen by Beijing as an unacceptable risk for China's financial system and overall economic health. Director of UNCTAD's Globalization and Development Strategies Division, Richard Kozel-Wright, is even more critical of the prevailing pessimism than Greenspan.
You could have expected a faster recovery in China this year, and that hasn't happened because of a number of strong headwinds in the real estate market with respect to consumer demand that has been surprisingly weak in China, or weaker than many people expected. But we certainly don't agree with the almost hysterical reaction that some of the Western press has adopted towards China. As we point out in the report, China will grow 10 to 12 times faster than the Eurozone this year.
Arlene Ocampo from Atanang Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
South Korea's defense ministry said that it was closely monitoring Pyongyang's nuclear reactor in Yongbyon. This is after South Korean and United States intelligence authorities detected signs that the said reactor had been temporarily suspended in late September. Government sources said that this could be a hint that spent fuel rods in the plant are being reprocessed to extract plutonium for use in nuclear weapons. Last week, Pyongyang enshrined its nuclear agenda in its constitution. This is part of North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's call for more atomic weapons to counter perceived threats from the U.S.
The United States has sent roughly 1.1 million bullets seized from Iran to Ukraine. The U.S. Central Command, or CENTCOM, which oversees Middle Eastern operations, says the rounds were confiscated from a ship bound for Yemen. Ukraine's Western allies recently cautioned Ukraine on the checkpoints in production demand as they were struggling to keep up with the rate at which Ukraine was using ammunition. The ammunition transferred were the ones used in Soviet-era rifles and light machine guns. While the number is significant, it represents a small percentage of the hundreds of millions of rounds already provided by allies to Ukraine, adding to the 200 million bullets and grenades already donated by the United States in previous care packages. The Iranian munitions were originally seized by U.S. naval forces from a stateless ship, with the U.S. government gaining ownership over the cargo through a process called civil forfeiture, by which an asset can be seized if its owner is thought to be involved in criminal activity.
Top officials from the United States and the EU met with their Russian counterparts for undisclosed emergency talks in Turkiye designed to resolve the standoff over Nagorno-Karabakh. This meeting happened days before Azerbaijan launched a military offensive to seize the breakaway territory from ethnic Armenian control. The off-diary meeting marks a rare occasion where contact between Moscow and the West were facilitated over a major security concern. A senior diplomat said that the meeting took place on the 17th of September in Istanbul as part of efforts to pressure Azerbaijan to end its 9-month blockade of the enclave and allow in humanitarian aid convoys from Armenia. The U.S. was represented by Luisa Bono, Washington's senior advisor for Caucasus negotiations, while the EU dispatched Toy Foklar and Russia sent Igor Kovayev, Putin's special envoy on relations between Armenia and Azerbaijan. Such high-level diplomatic interaction is rare, given the last interaction between the parties have been on the sideline of the G20, where Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov briefly came face-to-face with U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken.
Azerbaijan has declined participation in the proposed talks with Armenia and Spain, expressing mistrust towards the European Union. Azeri President Ilham Aliyev had been invited to engage in five-way discussions alongside Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan and EU leaders focusing on the future of Nagorno-Karabakh. However, recent remarks by the French foreign minister to supply arms to Armenia have sparked anger in Aliyev, who perceives this as a clear display of French bias. This has led officials in Baku to label it as an anti-Azerbaijani atmosphere created by the EU. They further suggest that a three-way dialogue with Armenia would only be acceptable if hosted by Turkiye, an ally of Azerbaijan that supported the military offensive.
Turkish warplanes carry out a new series of airstrikes targeting Kurdish militants in a swift response to a recent bombing in Ankara. The strikes came shortly after Turkey issued a warning of retaliation following the martyr bombing in Ankara, for which the banned Kurdistan Workers' Party, or PKK, claimed responsibility. The attack occurred outside the Interior Ministry in Ankara, resulting in 2 injured police officers. Turkish jets have targeted 22 suspected PKK positions in northern Iraq, demolishing caves, shelters, and depots used by the militants. Ankara reports a significant number of insurgents neutralized by these airstrikes. As of now, there has been no response from Kurdish officials regarding Turkey's retaliatory attacks.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, accompanied by other high-ranking American officials, is embarking on a visit to Mexico to engage in discussions regarding shared security concerns. The United States is particularly alarmed by the rising number of fatal overdoses linked to synthetic opioids, notably fentanyl, which have become a leading cause of death among Americans aged 18 to 49. Additionally, there is significant concern about the flow of weapons from the U.S. ending up in the hands of cartels. Mexican top officials are defending the country's counter-narcotic efforts, underscoring significant seizures of fentanyl in recent months.
Sí nos preocupa la pandemia por el consumo del fentanilo en Estados Unidos y nos preocupa más y nos duele que pierdan la vida 100,000 jóvenes cada año en ese país por el consumo del fentanilo. ¿Y qué hacen ellos, los legisladores? ¿Nada más echarle la culpa a México? Sin ninguna razón.
The discussion is also expected to encompass increased migration as the U.S. President Joe Biden's administration faces mounting pressure to mitigate the influx of migrants.
In New York, the state's attorney general is saying no to bullying. This after former U.S. President Donald Trump once again lashes out at her in comments following the third day of the civil trial she brought against him. Joanne Soriano has more details.
New York Attorney General Letitia James responds to Donald Trump's comments as the fraud trial against the former president concludes day 3.
I would describe as race baiting. Comments, unfortunately, that appeals to the bottom of our humanity. This case was brought simply because it was a case where individuals have engaged in a pattern and practice of fraud.
James describes Trump's lashing out as a political stunt.
And lastly, I will not be bullied. And so Mr. Trump is no longer here. The Donald Trump show is over. This was nothing more than a political stunt, a fund-raising stop. And now we can continue to go forward with our trial, and we are confident that justice will be served.
On Tuesday, New York Judge Arthur Engoron, overseeing Trump's civil fraud trial, slapped a limited gag order on the former president after he insulted a court clerk in a social media post. Engoron says personal attacks on members of his court staff are unacceptable. Earlier that day, Trump posted on his Truth social platform a picture of one of the judge's clerks. He referred to her as the girlfriend of Democratic Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer. Trump then said the case should be dismissed immediately. The post was later deleted. In New York, Joanne Soriano from Atanang Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Media sources claim the United States Federal Bureau of Investigation, or FBI, is closely monitoring former President Donald Trump supporters. A person who requested not to be named alleged that the FBI is quietly working to profile Trump supporters and conservatives. The person, described as a current FBI official, also said the FBI is putting Trump's group into its own anti-government extremists category. The informant also cited a classified FBI report saying the federal government believes Trump's group can be a threat of violence and major civil disturbances around the 2024 U.S. presidential election. The Bureau source said the federal government wants to seek and counter Trump's followers ahead of the 2024 election.
After a long and exhausting journey in the heat from Panama into Costa Rica, hundreds of migrant families crossed on foot to a makeshift migrant camp at a former airfield in Paso Canoas. Most of them headed to the U.S., hoping for a better life. Percy Parlade reports.
These migrants have survived the natural obstacles of the jungle, from rivers to torrential rain to treacherous climbs and cliffs. These in addition to criminal gangs who often rob, kidnap, or rape them. Most migrants, although they dread it, go through what many describe as the hardest part of their journey, the Darien Gap jungle. Many say they saw many things they never thought they would see in their life. Desperation has pushed them to take risks, including hunger, thirst, sickness, even death. Many of them admit they have nothing else to lose, so why not take the chance at a life other than what they have now? Costa Rican Migration Police says the country is making the greatest efforts to set up and maintain this migrant center because the flow of migrants is at an unprecedented 3,000 to 5,000 people. Here, migrants get 3 meals a day. There are showers, bathrooms, and recreation areas. Percival Parlade for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
As the United Nations approves a Kenya-led multinational force to be deployed to Haiti, local residents express skepticism about their true intentions, viewing it as a diplomatic game orchestrated by the United States. RT's Umaima Ichchar tells us more.
I don't think that the arrival of military forces will bring a quick or a final solution. It's clear that the United States is playing a diplomatic game. If they wanted to solve Haiti's problem, they'd send American troops and take command. They wouldn't need any help from anyone, and they wouldn't need to negotiate with any small country.
In normal times we cannot accept it, but when we look at how the country is going at the moment, things are becoming more difficult. We cannot function because of insecurity. We cannot plan anything. All our projects fell through. We didn't want the military to come, but unfortunately, in the situation that we are in, we are forced to accept the military coming.
I see that the UN takes Haiti for a game, because the UN has already made several interventions in Haiti that did not give any result. The United States is an imperialist country. It has its own interest in the country's instability, because it's the great powers that sell arms around the world, legally or illegally. Which means that it's withdrawing from this issue to show people that it's not part of this mission, but we know that it's them who are behind it.
The United States has long been looking for an excuse to launch yet another intervention into the crisis-stricken Caribbean state, Haiti. After receiving a series of no's, Washington has finally secured the move, this time, though, through the hands of Kenya.
We now invite member states to contribute as active participants, providing personnel, funds, vital equipment, and logistical support to the multinational security support mission.
During the planning of the mission and the preparation of the relevant council resolution, we were faced with the fact that our reasonable request for more detailed information about the concept of the operation, the modalities of the use of force, and the withdrawal strategy of the contingent remained unanswered.
With the latest US-backed military intervention in Haiti due to begin in January, locals in Kenya are asking why their country is doing Washington's bidding. There's certainly no quick fix for the mess left behind by decades of America's own interventions in the Caribbean nation, which already has enough of its own trials and tribulations to tackle without having to deal with more foreign troops coming in under a questionable pretext.
47 heads of state and government from Europe have been invited to meet in the Spanish city of Granada. Top leaders of the European political community will participate in a pan-European cooperation platform initiated by the European Union. Heads of state and government from the European continent will discuss strategic issues with a special focus on security issues and the war in Ukraine. Multiple European leaders have been invited to the meeting, including from the 27 EU member states, the UK, Switzerland, and Ukraine. They will address the most pressing international crises, such as the Russia-Ukraine war and the situation in Azerbaijan's Karabakh region. The EU's future, digitalization, green transition of the economy, and energy issues are also expected to be discussed. This will be the third meeting of the European political community, which was launched in October 2022 in the Czech capital Prague to foster dialogue between European countries and to strengthen security, stability, and prosperity. On the sidelines of the latest meeting, EU officials have prepared five-party talks between the top leaders of Azerbaijan, Armenia, Germany, France, and the EU to mediate the Azerbaijani-Armenian conflict. Azerbaijan's President Ilham Aliyev decided Wednesday to cancel his participation at the meeting as organizers refused to include Turkiye in the talks, and high-level French officials made one-sided comments in support of Armenia. The discussions will aim at enhancing the EU's strategic autonomy and making it stronger and more competitive amid international challenges, said the letter. The events will be hosted by Spain, which assumed the rotating presidency of the Council of the European Union. Up next, More than 75,000 U.S. healthcare workers begin a 3-day strike. 3 scientists win the Nobel Chemistry Prize 2023. And Brazil vows more aid to drought-hit Amazon state. Please don't go away. We've got more stories when Mata ng Agila International returns.
Sa paborito nating tropa.
Aray! Sino ba?
Bukod kay Julius, mukhang ayos naman ang lagay ng lahat, di ba?
Welcome to Willgood Resort.
Ay, hindi ako mag-check-in. I came here to claim what's mine.
Sino to?
Nina? Hello, Trisha. Or should I call you Mo?
Si Trisha, may anak na dalaga na?
Ito na ba yung anak ninyo?
Ito na ba yung anak mo?
Ito ba yung anak niyo?
Mukhang may kaguluhan na naman na magaganap sa resort.
Julius! Ano yan?
Nako naman, Julius, tumagdag ka pa.
Julius! Ano ba yan, Ma'am Trisha?
May anak na nga ba talagang dalaga si Trisha?
Okay, listen up guys.
At ano ang pakay niya sa resort?
Ay!
Panoorin at alamin sa Goodwill Season 3 dito lang sa Net 25.
India has launched a search and rescue operation for 102 people missing after a deadly flash flood ripped the Himalayan state of Sikkim. Officials said a heavy rain caused the glacial lake to burst its banks and triggered the flash flood.
कल सुबह आपको 4 बजने में 15-20 मिनट का टाइम में आप ये बाढ़ अचानक आ गया, एक ही बार में बहुत बड़ा आया था। उसी कारण से हम लोग सामान गाड़ी घर का सामान कुछ भी निकालना नहीं पाया और यहाँ पर 2 गाड़ी चला गया है और 12 घर चला गया है और हम लोग को यहाँ कमाई करने वाला बोट था, राफ्टिंग था, वो 6 बोट चला गया है और आदमी लोग को रेस्क्यू करके हम लोग सब स्कूल में भेज दिया है और टोटल आपको 22 घर डैमेज में है।
The disaster also left 10 people dead. Witnesses said they thought the water level would not rise as it was very low. But when the dam burst, the waters washed away their houses as they relocated themselves to higher ground.
Japan's meteorological agency has issued a tsunami warning after experiencing an earthquake along its eastern coast. A tsunami advisory has been issued by Japanese officials following a 6.6 magnitude earthquake that struck near Torishima Island off the Izu Peninsula. The epicenter of the said quake happened in the western part of the Pacific Ocean and is expected to produce waves of up to 1 meter or 3.2 feet. Several seismic activities were also observed in the same area throughout this week, with other quakes reaching above magnitude 6. In a conference held by Japan's meteorological agency this Thursday, a representative stated that a 1 meter wave may not seem significant, but encountering such a wave can be extremely dangerous and can sweep you off your feet. The agency also advised people living in coastal areas to move to higher ground after reports say that there is a 10 to 20% chance of aftershocks happening with a similar magnitude.
On Thursday, Japan began releasing the second batch of treated wastewater from the Fukushima nuclear plant. Plant operator Tokyo Electric Power Company Holdings, or TEPCO, said they activated a pump to dilute the treated water with large amounts of seawater, slowly sending the mixture into the ocean through an underground tunnel. The plant's first wastewater release began on August 24 and ended September 11. During that release, it discharged 7,800 tons of treated water from 10 tanks. In the second discharge, TEPCO plans to release another 7,800 tons of treated water into the Pacific Ocean over 17 days. TEPCO and the government say discharging the water into the sea is unavoidable because the tanks will reach capacity early next year, and space at the plant will be needed for its decommissioning, which is expected to take decades. The wastewater discharges have been strongly opposed by fishing groups and neighboring countries, including South Korea and China, where they have banned all imports of Japanese seafood.
A training aircraft crashed and burst into flames on the outskirts of Cali, Colombia, resulting in the death of the pilot who was trapped inside the fuselage. The Colombian Air Force has reported that there is no information regarding any emergency calls made by the pilot before the accident. A student pilot was also on board, found to be in critical condition, and was immediately rushed to a local hospital. Authorities are actively investigating the incident to determine the cause of the tragic crash.
In Cuba, at least one person is dead and 2 more are missing after the collapse of an apartment building in Havana. Bruce Balmeo has more details.
The collapsed building housed over 50 people. A source says a woman member of the responding fire brigade died during rescue operations. Another firefighter and a 76-year-old resident of the building are still missing. Reports say only the facade of the building remains. 2 people were injured and taken to the hospital. Due to lack of maintenance, buildings periodically collapse in some old neighborhoods of the Cuban capital. These incidents are more frequent during the rainy and hurricane season. The Cuban capital has been experiencing heavy downpours in recent days. Bruce Balmeo for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Tens of thousands of healthcare workers in the United States walked off their jobs on Wednesday, beginning one of the sector's largest strikes in recent history. The walkout of more than 75,000 workers at the country's largest nonprofit healthcare organization, Kaiser Permanente, comes as surging inflation has spurred across the U.S. People on the picket line said they were underpaid and overworked. Kaiser Permanente locations in California, Colorado, Oregon, and Washington State were expected to be affected by the 3-day strike. Their centers would remain open, but warned of the longer than usual wait times. The union is pushing for pay increases and protection against subcontracting and outsourcing of labor. It has threatened to engage in further strike action in November if Kaiser continues to commit unfair labor practices. Wednesday's strike comes during a year in which the U.S. has seen an unusually high level of industrial action as workers struggle with inflation levels.
If you look at Kaiser, what they've made, if you look at them this past year, half the year they profited $3.1 billion, right? So you put that against us, we're making less than minimum wages. Well, minimum wage was at $17. We're asking for a minimum wage to go to $25.
Despite the inflation that the whole country is living, Kaiser Permanente has reported billions of dollars in profits. So all we're asking from Kaiser CEOs is to share those profits with the frontline workers that have been, the ones taking care of their members, understaffed through pandemics, and that have been losing members because of the pandemic. So all we're asking for a fair contract so that we can be able to live, here in the Southern California.
UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak announces that he is cancelling the second leg of a massive high-speed rail scheme, promising to invest billions of pounds saved in wider transport projects. In the United Kingdom, Beverly Madrid reports.
British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak on Wednesday scrapped a key section of England's new high-speed railway, diverting billions of pounds to improve existing transport routes in the north. Speaking at his Conservative Party's annual conference in Manchester, Sunak said HS2 would no longer run high-speed trains to the city in northwest England, and that the government would spend the £36 billion saved on improving current train, road and bus networks. HS2, Britain's second high-speed rail line, has suffered massive delays and rising costs. However, starting at the end of this decade, it plans to continue operating between London and the city of Birmingham in central England.
And so, I am ending this long-running saga. I am cancelling the rest of the HS2 project. And in its place, we will reinvest every single penny, £36 billion, in hundreds of new transport projects in the North and the Midlands across the country. This means £36 billion of investment in the projects that will make a real difference across our nation.
Project costs had almost tripled to more than an estimated £100 billion from £37.5 billion in 2013. Even before taking into account the recent rise in inflation, making it one of the most expensive lines of the world. With costs rising, much of the project had already been derailed before Wednesday's announcement. In 2021, the government disconnected the route linking Birmingham with the city of Leeds in the north of England. HS2, which aims to speed up journey times and reduce capacity on existing busy routes, was at the forefront of the government's grand plan to level up the economy by providing better infrastructure to the north. London and the southeast of England have long been seen as benefiting from major transport projects, while the north has lost out. Meanwhile, business and environmental groups gave lukewarm responses, welcoming investments that remained in the north but taking advantage of missed opportunities. According to Greenpeace, UK's head of politics, Rebecca Newsom, Sunak's decision to divert money to more than 70 road projects shows how little he really cares about tackling air pollution, traffic, and reducing carbon emissions. UK Bureau Beverly Madrid for Matanang Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
United States President Joe Biden has approved debt relief for an additional 125,000 student loan recipients, or a total of $9 billion in forgiveness.
I'm announcing my administration has approved an additional $9 billion in relief for 125,000 borrowers in just the past few weeks under that program. With the latest debt cancellation, in total, my administration has canceled $127 billion in student debts for nearly 3.6 million Americans. This kind of relief is life-changing for individuals and their families, but it's good for our economy as a whole as well.
Voilà. Though the U.S. Supreme Court struck down Biden administration's student loan forgiveness program, the White House has continued to find other means to provide debt relief. Some of these efforts include affordable monthly student loan payments and a new repayment program that promises to lower bills for millions of borrowers.
The Royal Swedish Academy of Sciences awarded scientists Mungi Bawendi, Louis Bruce, and Alexei Ekimov of Nobel Prize in Chemistry 2023. The trio was awarded for the discovery of tiny clusters of atoms known as quantum dots, which widely is used today to create colors in flat screens, light-emitting diode or LED lamps, and devices that help surgeons see blood vessels in tumors. One of the fascinating and unusual properties of quantum dots is that they change light color depending on the particle size, while keeping the atomic structure unchanged. Bawendi was born in Paris to French and Tunisian parents and is a professor at Massachusetts Institute of Technology, or MIT, in the United States. Bruce, meanwhile, is a professor at Columbia, New York, while Russian-born Alexei Ekimov works at the US-based nanocrystal technology. The trio will share the $1 million award at a ceremony in Stockholm on December 10, the anniversary of the 1896 death of scientist Alfred Nobel, who created the prizes in his last will and testament. Brazil, Vice President Geraldo Alckmin says more aid would be sent to an Amazon state where rivers are drying up in a severe drought. Rani Bayuga reports.
Brazil's biggest state, Amazonas, is covered in immense expanses of tropical forest. It is currently in its dry season, and the El Niño warming phenomenon is not helping. Aside from the mass die-offs of fish and pink river dolphins, low water levels are impeding travel on the waterways. This is crucial for local communities to receive supplies and move around. Brazilian Vice President Geraldo Alckmin assures there will be no shortage of resources for whatever is needed. Alckmin says they are working to free up more resources as quickly as possible to help the population. Brazilian authorities are prioritizing the supply of food, water, fuel, and medicine to affected populations in Amazonas. Rani Bayuga for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Coming right up, Google announces its latest premium-priced Pixel phone. Margarita Ochoa wins second gold medal for the Philippines in the Asian Games. And late-night shows resume after 5 months off the air. Catch the latest in business, sports, tech, and entertainment with Agila International. We'll be back.
Masiglahin ng araw ng linggo. Kayo'y maaantig.
Huwag mo ubusin ang luha mo sa wala dito.
Mapapaisip.
What are we gonna do?
Matatawa.
Why so much food? Even no money, no honey, we make utang-utang.
Mapapahanga. At mapapainda. Kasama si The King, ang nag-iisang comedy king Dolphy.
Ano pangalan mo? Big po. Big po. Ano mo si Fernando po?
Tito Vic and Joey.
Mahirap ikwento, Vicky. Mahabang istorya.
At marami pang artista na pinagigiliwan noon magpahanggang ngayon.
My love, my endless love.
Sine Throwback. Tuwing linggo, alas 12 ng tanghali sa Net 25.
Shares of China Evergrande Group jumped to 42% as it resumed stock trading. Its unit, Evergrande Property Services Group, was also up by nearly 14%. The property giant suspended its trading after authorities investigated its billionaire founder over allegations of committing undisclosed crimes. Chinese authorities are investigating whether Evergrande chairman Hui Ka-yan attempted to transfer assets offshore while the company was struggling to complete unfinished projects. Evergrande insists there was no other pertinent information about the company that needed to be disclosed. But sources say a major offshore creditor group is preparing to join a liquidation court petition if Evergrande does not submit a revamped debt plan by the end of this month. Shipbuilder Damen Shipyards is suing the Dutch government for losses caused by sanctions imposed against Russian clients. Diamond Shipyards is a 90-year-old Gorinchem-based family-owned business which builds various types of vessels from warships to luxury yachts. Company spokesman Rick Van de Veeg says the sanctions prevented Diamond Shipyards from honoring a number of contracts with Russian buyers. He argues their contracts with Russian clients were executed before the war in Ukraine broke out. The lawsuit was filed in Rotterdam on May 10 of this year, but has only now been disclosed to the public this week. Sources say the case is expected to proceed in 2024. Soon you might be able to watch TikTok ad-free, but mostly at a price. Sources say the TikTok users could get an ad-free experience for $4.99 a month. TikTok said they are testing their product in an English-speaking market outside the United States, but the tech giant refused to comment on exactly where they roll out their tests. YouTube and Elon Musk's X are among the sites already offering fewer or no ads for a monthly fee. An advertisement used artificial intelligence to generate a younger version of Tom Hanks to promote dental plans. But Hanks said he did not shoot or endorse the ad. He also said his likeness was generated with AI tools without his consent. The Forrest Gump and Toy Story star also shared the said advertisement on his Instagram, warning fans that he has nothing to do with the dental plan. Earlier this year, Hanks raised concerns over studio productions using likenesses of actors. He said AI-generated versions of personalities should be protected as intellectual property. Google announces that its latest premium-priced Pixel phone would have powerful generative AI models running independently on the device. This as the search engine giant seeks to lure buyers away from the latest iPhone. Glenn Cadusale has more.
Running on a powerful chip, Google's Pixel 8 Pro would carry out certain AI functions on the device itself. This, instead of relying on transfers from cloud data centers that require heavy bandwidth. At a launch event in New York, Google's Senior Vice President Rick Osterloh says the company's AI teams had figured out how to distill AI models into a version efficient enough to run on their flagship Pixel. This would enhance existing AI tools on Pixel phones, from removing blemishes to unwanted intrusions in photographs. Osterloh says this on-device ability would later expand to other AI features. Pixel phones would also begin testing an AI-amped assistant just like Google's ChatGPT-styled Bard on the phone. In time, the company said the AI assistant would provide real-time help with choosing the best path for a hike, sifting through emails, or even planning a birthday party. Google surprised many with news that the Pixel 8 Pro would also come equipped with a body temperature reader. This pending approval by US regulators. Glenn Carlo Carisale for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The Philippines has again struck gold as Margarita Ochoa won the second gold medal for the Philippines in the 19th Asian Games. This after she ruled the under 48 kilogram division of women's jiu-jitsu, defeating Balkis Abdullah of the United Arab Emirates. Ochoa was able to win by advantage after she got a mount over Abdullah at the 4:32 mark of their bout. Abdullah somehow tried to submit Ochoa with a triangle choke, but it did not pan out, as Ochoa kept her dominant position the whole match. With Ochoa's feat, it is the Philippines' second gold medal in the Asian Games after pole vaulter EJ Opiena won last September 30. Meanwhile, Gilas Pilipinas has pulled off a huge upset to stun host China in the Asian Games men's basketball semifinals. This after Gilas came back from 20 points down and won 77-76 over China. It was a stunning comeback by the Nationals, who trailed the host squad for most part of the game before their massive run in the payoff period. As Justin Brown-Lee has knocked down successive trays down the stretch to tow Gilas to a thrilling victory. With the defeat, Gilas will figure in a rematch against the Ronde Hollis Jefferson-led Jordan for the gold on Friday.
SAG-AFTRA and the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers met Monday for talks, the first time since the actors' strike began in mid-July. Bernadette Manuel has the details.
On Monday, October 2nd, SAG-AFTRA and Hollywood's top companies released a joint statement that they had just met for a full-day bargaining session and will be back on the negotiations table on Wednesday, October 4. The union on Monday met with Hollywood's top leaders, which included Warner Bros. Discovery CEO David Zaslav, Disney CEO Bob Iger, NBC Universal Studio Group Chairman Chief Content Officer Donna Langley, and Netflix co-CEO Ted Sarandos. The industry bigwigs met with the union at the SAG-AFTRA National Headquarters on Wilshire Boulevard without any federal mediators present. The top priorities for the actors' union that have yet to be fully addressed remain the same: wage increases, revenue sharing on streaming titles, and regulations on artificial intelligence. Meanwhile, the union leaders, headed by SAG-AFTRA Fran Drescher, also said that the group would remain out on strike as long as it takes. Bernadette Manuel for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Late-night shows finally returned on Monday for their first broadcast soon after the 5-month writers' strike ended. Stephanie Mayo has the scoop.
After the 5 months writers' strike ended last week, finally, late-night shows returned on Monday night for their first broadcasts. CBS The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, ABC's Jimmy Kimmel Live, and NBC's The Tonight Show starring Jimmy Fallon were the first shows to go off-air when the writers' strike began on May 2nd, and now were among the first to return with airings Monday night. The hosts in their opening monologues expressed gratitude to be working again and dived into 5 months' worth of news. While off the air, Kimmel, Fallon, Colbert, Seth Meyers, and John Oliver collaborated on a podcast called Strike Force 5, with proceeds donated to their out-of-work staff members. Meanwhile, the Screen Actors Guild American Federation of Television and Radio Artists, or SAG-AFTRA, began negotiations Monday with the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers for the first time since they joined writers. The two sides will resume talks Wednesday. Stephanie Mayo for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
And to send you off today, here's a quote from novelist, screenwriter, and Nobel laureate Sir Kazuo Ishiguro OBE. Many of our deepest motives come not from an adult logic of how things work in the world, but out of something that is frozen from childhood.
I kind of agree with that. I'm so lucky to have had an amazing childhood, and I think that's what drives most of my actions.
It's the same here.
Yes.
When I look back, it makes me smile.
And that's a wrap for tonight's news. Catch the latest updates on our social media channels. I'm Gianna Llanes.
I am Nina Richie Alago Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point. Thank you for choosing Mata ng Agila International as your trusted news source, keeping you connected to the world and on point with stories from around the globe. Follow, like, and subscribe to @Net25 TV.